the epiphany that I had is that everybody is in sales. Every day, the husband sells the wife sells the husband, the kids sell
Yeah.
the parents sell the kids, the coach sells the players, right? The
Yeah.
guy that says, I'm an attorney. No, you're not. You're a salesman with legal expertise. You got to sell the
Yes.
judge or the jury, right?
Yeah.
The minister's got to sell the congregation. So that was the epiphany is that, hey, man, everybody's in sales. And the other one was that selling is the highest paying, hardest work, and it's the lowest paying, easiest work because you get out of it what you put into it.
Today we have Julio Melara on the pod. Julio is the founder and CEO of Melara Enterprises and several other brands. He's the publisher of the Baton Rouge Business Report, a leading business news publication that serves the greater Baton Rouge area in Louisiana, providing in-depth coverage of local business trends, economic development, entrepreneurship, and government policy affecting the business community. Now, Julio is the consummate salesman, and I have seen firsthand how he knows how to build a successful sales team. So, without further ado, let's get ready for episode 23 of the Systematic Selling Podcast. Julio, welcome to the pod, my friend.
Thanks, Sean. It's great to see you, my friend.
You too. Super excited about this conversation. Anything you'd like to add or clarify with that intro?
No, man, we're good to go. It's a nice, short, succinct one because there could be a lot more, but we're good to
Oh,
go.
I know, man. All these brands, companies you have. Can't wait to dive into our conversation here. So you have long-standing ties in the Baton Rouge community. I mean, look, I've seen it firsthand. You are Mr. Baton Rouge, but did you grow up there?
No, I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and my
Ah,
mother's from Honduras.
yeah.
And matter of fact, my father left us when I was 4 years old, and my
Mm,
mother raised me. And so my mother was my hero. She's the one that installed in me my work ethic, my drive, and gave me some great life lessons. And
yeah,
I tell people all the time, I'm like Abraham Lincoln. Everything I am, everything I hope to be, I owe to my mother.
absolutely. Now, did you grow up with siblings as well?
Yes, I have a younger brother and an older sister. I was the middle child, and what was great is that my mother, she's telling me, she said, in this world, she never had a
Yeah.
college education, but she had a lot of wisdom, and she said, in this world, there'll be people that are smarter than you, people with
Mhm.
more education than you, people may even higher socioeconomic, but there's two things you don't let anybody do in life.
Yeah.
You don't let anybody outwork you. You don't let anybody outlearn you. And
Yeah.
those two things still serve me well today. And now that I'm 60 years old, which I can't even believe, but I
Yeah. I
still,
can't
you're
believe
not
that
going to
either.
outwork me. You're not going to outlearn me. So I was very fortunate because when I graduated from high school, I didn't know all my friends had resources to go to college.
Yeah.
And I didn't know we didn't have money to go to college. The thought never passed my mind. But I put myself through college. I worked 40, 50 hours a week and I went to college. And I was real fortunate because my freshman year, I played Division I soccer.
Awesome.
And in the off season, the university helped me find a job. And I got a job. Business journals were just coming into the scene in America in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And in 1983, the Business Journal opened up in New Orleans, and they were looking for a courier, which was a fancy name
Yeah.
for gopher. And so I got a job at 3.35 an hour,
Yeah.
being a courier for the local business journal. And that was my first time I got exposed to sales. I saw these
Yeah.
salespeople wearing nice suits and driving nice cars. And by the time I became a junior in college,
Yeah.
I went to my bosses and I said, I don't want to be a courier anymore. I want to get into sales.
Love
And
it.
so my senior year of college, I took, in those days, it was called the sunrise class. So I had a 7:30 a.m. class and I was done by 11:30. So the rest of the day I got into sales. I sold. So I went to college in a suit every day, my senior year. And I started selling. And so when I graduated from college, I already had a sales job lined up.
I love it. I want to hit the pause button there real quick because I want to build off of that point in a few moments. But before we do, going back to when you were growing up, I know a lot of times you mentioned the wisdom that your mom shared with you, but more often than not, it's not the words that they share, it's what you observe. What did your mom do to support you all at the same time having to raise you all? What was it that you saw about her and her work ethic that you feel that you've adapted in your own life and career?
Great question. For me, it was her sacrifice,
Hmm.
sacrificial love. I mean, she worked as I played. I was a real good athlete. I was good at everything, great at nothing, but she would attend when everybody had their fathers out there
Hmm.
cheering them on. It was my mother out there with broken English. And so her work ethic, her drive, and probably the greatest gift that she gave me was the gift of affirmation and belief.
Mm.
She would tell me, Julio, you can accomplish anything. And she used to challenge me to dream big. And she built a belief. To this day, all three of my siblings, we lack a lot of different areas, but one thing we don't lack is confidence.
Yeah.
Because our mother instilled that belief in us, right? That we could
Yeah.
accomplish if we worked hard and we persevered, we were resilient, we could accomplish anything we set our minds to do. And that was the belief. So she gave me the gift of belief.
Now, what school did you end up going to for college?
I ended up going to the University of New Orleans.
Okay. So you stayed local
Yep.
and you were an athlete and I I I was also an athlete in college, ran cross country and track. But what you said prior to you saying you were an athlete, that you were working, I believe you said like 35 to 50 hours a
Yep.
week.
Yep.
I I can only imagine because it felt like running cross country and track was nearly a full-time job. I mean, I took other jobs and things like that to pay, but I can't imagine the type of hours that you were actually putting in between your studies and the sports and then being able to have time for work. How did you find that balance to keep your sanity and your energy?
Man, again, I could go back to I was I was a machine. I was just
Yeah.
focused, man. I was very goal oriented. That was another thing. Because the way she raised me and because I was able to dream, I was very goal oriented. So, because believe it or not, I had time to play too. If you're born and raised in New Orleans, you're going to play.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, in the midst of all that work, in the midst of the athletics, I
yeah,
found time to play. And it was just really goal driven, right? I stuck. And frankly, a little bit later on, when I started, when I wrote my first book, I really learned how to get even more disciplined. But that's another story. But it was just really
yeah,
staying very goal oriented. I could multitask very well. I'm very, very organized. And so even as a student in college, when I didn't know any really tactics and strategies like I
right,
know today,
right.
I was just highly organized for my age at that time.
Yeah. Now, what did you get your degree in?
I got it in business with a minor in marketing.
Wow. So, did you envision yourself at that time because you had that discipline, you had a drive, you were doing sales, which is a great prerequisite for entrepreneurship. Did you envision yourself running a company or did you envision yourself being like, hey, I think I can crush sales. I'll probably be, in sales for my career. What was your vision at the time that you
Yeah,
chose
that's a
your
great
major?
question. Well, the irony is that in less than 8 years, I started out as a courier and I became executive vice president. Within my second year, I was the top producer in the company at 25. And
And
within
was this with the New Orleans Business Journal?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
but by that time we started growing. So
Yeah.
we had gotten into the radio business, outdoor
Mhm.
billboard business.
Yeah.
My mentor was a hell of an entrepreneur, and he's the one that helped me with my acumen and helped me start dreaming.
Yeah.
But I cut my teeth in sales, and so one of the things I got a chance from Tom Hopkins to Zig Ziglar to Brian Tracy, all these guys whose books I
Yeah.
read, whose seminars I attended. I got to know them all personally.
Mm.
In the late 1990s, I actually shared the stage. I opened up for Zig Ziglar during the Success Tours, and so that personal connection, I consider Zig Ziglar a mentor. His authenticity and the way he did things was really spoke volumes to me. But that company grew. And so that helped me start dreaming bigger about me doing my own thing one day. And so
Yeah.
what ended up happening there is I became executive vice president. We were doing very, very, very well. And WWL Radio came. I was thinking about getting an MBA. And at the time, they were owned by the Jesuits, by Loyola University.
Yeah.
And if you worked for them, they paid for your MBA. So that's the
Wow.
carrot they threw out to me. And
Yeah.
I took it. So I left the comfort where I grew up from 17 years old to 28. And
Yeah.
I left there to go into the radio business. And WWL Radio is the second oldest radio station in America. 50,000
Wow.
watt clear channel. When the sun goes down, you could hear it in 38 states.
Yeah.
And I came in as the number seventh salesman. By the second year, I was number three.
Wow.
And by the third year, I was number one. And the following year, I became the first $1 million producer in the radio industry in Louisiana. And I had
Wow.
opened up, I was handling not just radio, but also we handled everything for the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, and Tulane
Hmm.
Green Wave radio broadcasts. And so I had opened up a sports marketing agency on the side because I was recruiting these players. My partner was a licensed NBA, NFL agent. And so I had that little side gig going, and that entrepreneur bug just, it was there, man. It was there. So I had that going on. And then that's when I first started writing my first book also.
Now, during that time, while you were in sales and you had that progression, what was it that you learned? What training did you receive? What words of advice did you receive, or just even through experience that helped you get from where you were when you were starting out to get to that top within that company?
Yeah, great question. Well, a couple of things. One is that your sales philosophy is also your philosophy for life. And I learned
What's
real
that mean?
quickly that serving is the gateway to success.
Mm.
And that if I became a student of selling, that I was going to be an expert in selling. And
Hmm.
so what blows me away is that every year, doctors, CPAs, attorneys, they got to continuing education. They got to get these credits.
Hmm.
And many people that get into sales think I go to a seminar one time and I'm done,
Yeah.
right? It never occurs to them that continuing education and continuing to elevate their competency, right, which helps their
Yeah.
confidence and get better. So that was one.
Hmm.
I'll tell you. So training, I've done it from Jeffrey Gitomer to Zig
Yep.
Ziglar to Sandler sales training, and so I was real fortunate because again, I studied the science of selling, right? And selling is a science, but there's an art to it. And so
Yep.
I added my own personality to it, right? My own energy to it. And even now, my companies, we have a simple sales philosophy, right? We give
Yeah.
value first,
Yep.
right? We're committed to building long-term relationships. We're
Yeah.
constantly thinking out of the box and being creative, right? You got to innovate in today's world, regardless of what you're selling, whether it be to get the appointment, whether it be to close the sale, whether it be
Yeah.
during the presentation or solve the client's pain points. And the
Yeah.
fourth one is this got to be fun. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
greatest thing. The epiphany that I had is that everybody is in sales. Every day, the husband sells the wife sells the husband, the kids sell
Yeah.
the parents sell the kids, the coach sells the players, right? The
Yeah.
guy that says, I'm an attorney. No, you're not. You're a salesman with legal expertise. You got to sell the
Yes.
judge or the jury, right?
Yeah.
The minister's got to sell the congregation. So that was the epiphany is that, hey, man, everybody's in sales. And the other one was that selling is the highest paying, hardest work, and it's the lowest paying, easiest work because you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
And so if you put in the time and the energy, right, to become competent and become the best, it pays off in so many different ways, right? And then the
Yeah.
last thing I'll tell you is the power of enthusiasm, right? Because I really, to this day, I mean, if I was selling Mary Kay Cosmetics, my clients would buy from me because
Yeah.
they knew I was there to serve them, right?
Yeah.
I had some clients that just wanted me to come because I always made it feel better after I left, right?
Uh-huh.
Because my mother was an encourager, I'm an encourager, and so
Yeah.
I would just bring the energy and the positivity and the enthusiasm to every interaction that I had. And all of that helped my career advance.
I absolutely love that. And I want to double click on something that you said at the beginning of that. And a, a huge part of my philosophy that I teach is antithetical to ABC, always be closing. It's ABS, always be serving. And you
Mm,
hit on something there where you said that sales is serving. Could you unpack that for us?
absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, you become elite when you have the right mindset. And I think that
Hmm.
there's three mindsets that every elite salesperson, regardless of the industry, have.
Yep.
One is, hey, I have a growth mindset versus fixed mindset, right? Meaning, even now, I know a lot, but I don't know enough. I'm constantly trying to learn every single
Yep.
day, right? You got to have a positive mindset versus a negative mindset, right? I'm here to solve problems. I'm here
Hmm.
to serve. No matter what challenge, there's a solution for that.
Yeah.
And then the third mindset that elite salespeople have is you got to have an abundance mindset versus lack. The beautiful thing is that we live in America and there's always opportunities. Sean, I've been fortunate. I've traveled all over the world. I've been on missions trips, and I still come. America, with all its challenges, is still the greatest country on the planet.
Yeah.
We're so fortunate to live here. And so, what I've discovered is that if your intent is really to serve, I have been in meetings, and I tell this when we're doing some sales rallies or our sales training here, is that if we can't solve the client's problem, let's tell them and let's move on, because
Yes.
it's about serving and helping.
Yeah.
Because if you do serve and if you do solve their problem, you do solve their pain point, oh my goodness, right? They'll keep coming and then they recommend you. And so, you got to think serving is about others first. And so the elite salesperson are always thinking of their customers first. They're
Mm.
not worried about their quota. They're not fixated on what they're going to get out of that relationship. They're fixated on how can I serve? How can I help? How can I solve that issue? And to me, that's a mindset.
Yeah. We are so aligned in that. The thing that you will come across is you'll have people go, you know what, that sounds great. That, hey, you're focused on the customer first, whatever's going on with your quota and everything else. But you'll also have this other side that, if you have the angel and the devil, you've got the devil going, yeah, but you got quota this month, right? And and then you have certain cultures in sales organizations that they are hammering their sales reps on the quota. How, in your own organization, how have you established it where you empower your sales team to be focused on the customer while still performing at a level that they need to do to pay for themselves?
Yeah, good question. So it's real simple. It comes down to philosophy. So
Hmm.
we have a certain culture. To me, those organizations that go in that flow are what I call transactional. We're not transactional. We're very relational. Our sales teams our organization is relationship oriented. And
Yep.
so we want to build long-term relationships. And what we try and tell, particularly our younger salespeople over and over, right? One is that you will reap what you sow.
Hmm.
Two is that anybody can sell anything to anybody one time, but the mark of the elite salesperson is the one that
Hmm.
can get the repeat business. And it's
Yeah.
based on the quality of the relationship and how we help them solve their pain points.
Yeah.
And so it's literally, the old adage, what the mind hears the most it believes. We are
Yeah.
constantly talking about that over and over and over again, because what we don't want is for you to have a bad experience with us. We
Yep.
sold you something that didn't work. And
Yep.
now you're not going to feel good about our organization or me as a salesperson,
Yep.
right? But the reverse is just as accurate. If you have a great experience with me, you're going to tell other people, hey man, Julio, man, is sharp. You got to
Yep.
you got to talk to that guy, right? You'll help open the doors. And so that's where you get referrals. That's where you build a network. And I'll tell you, the other thing we tell our people here is, look, the majority of the world says that selling is not about what you know, it's about who you know. And we
Hmm.
go, that's not right.
Hmm.
Selling is about who knows you.
Yeah.
It's based on your reputation. So how are
Yeah.
you networking? How are you known in your industry? How are you known in the community, right? How do people describe you, right? What adjectives do they use? Man, he's a team player. Oh my God. He's smart, he's creative, he's innovating, whatever. And so we're constantly talking about that in our sales meetings, right? And so it just kind of begins to seep in because it's part of our culture.
I want to I want to put a pin on that concept that you're talking about there. And there is a lot of talk, whether it's in sales or entrepreneurship, especially today, on building your personal brand. And when people talk about it today, they talk about it in a way of being known or being famous. And what I hear you say, and it's something that rings true deeply to me, is it's not necessarily about being known or famous, it's what you are known for. Do
Yes.
you follow through on your commitments? Do you,
That's
I
right.
mean, I've got this running joke with one of my clients that if I'm even like 1 or 2 seconds off of the time on the call, he'll have this because he's like, it's like I could set time on you, Sean. And he goes, yeah, it was 10 seconds later. I was like, man, I was going to start calling the hospitals, the morgue. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with you. You know, that's what I would become known. You would become known for things that traits that your customers will find value in, so much so that they will tell other people about it. And that's what I hear you describing. It is the known for, not just the known in personal branding.
That's exactly right. Totally. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right.
Now, let's let's talk about how here you went. You had this meteoric rise essentially when you, as you gained that experience in college and then ended up, getting near the top in this, and then you joined the radio station. You started out in seventh, got to, where you were leading the clubhouse in sales. Where did that take you from there to, did you launch the Baton Rouge Business Report or did you purchase it?
So great question. So what ended up happening is that I started making so much money, I didn't even finish my MBA because by
Yeah.
that time I had really figured out the game in my early, I was 31.
Yeah.
And so, but I was tired of being a hired gun. I wanted to do something. And
Mm.
so the way I ended up, I had opportunities in Miami, Dallas, and Chicago, but I married a woman from Louisiana. And so she wasn't going anywhere. So 1 hour
Yeah.
down the street from New Orleans is Baton Rouge, the capital of Louisiana. And there was a guy that owned the Business Journal.
Hmm.
And I had finished my book, my first book. So I was doing a little book tour around Louisiana, different um, communities. And so I came to Baton Rouge and I contacted him because obviously I really didn't know him. But so we started having conversations. And in 1997, make a long story short,
Yeah.
he was young. I was 31, he was 40. And his father had given him the seed money. He had started when he was 26.
Wow.
So his dad got out, I got in, and we became partners. And we're both faith-based. We had the same values. My strengths were his weaknesses. His weaknesses were my strength. And so I came in as president of the company, but really driving sales and revenue. We would call me today chief revenue officer at the time. So we had a small business journal, but from there I launched 225. We bought another magazine, a very high-end women's magazine,
Mm.
and 3 years ago I bought him out. He retired,
Yeah.
and I launched Studio E. I bought another company, a large video production company, because we're in the storytelling business.
Yeah.
And then I launched a training division off of our Executive Leadership Academy, and we actually, besides leadership training, we do custom training, and we also have a selling academy for our
Yeah.
industry. And so that was kind of the genesis of kind of got us going.
Yeah. And what what was it that led you into media? Was it just happenstance that that first job you took in college was what led you into that?
Yeah, so yeah, I believe so. I think it was a destiny thing, right?
Yeah.
Really, I love selling. I love my clients. I love serving. I quickly saw the rewards. I worked a lot on my mindset, right? There's an ancient scripture that says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind," in the book of Romans. And I still, to this day, right? I don't I, I don't listen to the world. I don't look at the news. This is the land of opportunity. I think there's an abundance of opportunity and possibilities. I tell our team every year, this past January, people were talking about, oh my God, the recession, oh my God, the inflation, interest rates rising, blah, blah, blah. And I go, you know what? I don't care if a recession, depression comes, we decided not to participate.
Yeah.
What I've discovered is that if you take care of your clients, you take care of your people, you take care of the community that you serve, it comes back and they take care of you. That's
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about living in this country. And so that just became a passion, right? It just became a passion. And then once I started getting competent, my confidence grew, and that trajectory just kind of, really took off. And I started doing a lot of sales training in my industry. So from Los Angeles to New York, people were hiring me. And so, as you know, the more you teach, it's
Yeah.
not the student that gets more, it's the teacher.
100%.
I mean, you're doing it for them, but you get better and better. And that's literally what happened to my career.
Yeah. There's something about the two disciplines, teaching and writing, that are the crucibles for your ideas, right? You have certain ideas that are running around your head and you go, yeah, that makes sense. This is great. But until you can communicate it, whether it's verbally or you communicate it, writing it down, you don't really know it. So, and then the beauty of when you are teaching is you see firsthand in real time what resonates and what doesn't. And then you're able to make adjustments. And it's a hugely valuable discipline as you learn those things. It's I would imagine that even when you're looking at your sales team, having internal sales training with people on the team that are saying, hey, here's what I tried and that works, and they're teaching other people on the team, is a way of really grasping that knowledge and then implementing it.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, what at this point you've done you've acquired the business report, you've started these other brands, and you're full force. It's most of the brands that you're in, they're media event based type of brands, correct?
Yes. So that's one company, the media. And then Studio E is a content studio where we help companies tell their story. But
Okay.
that really ended up morphing because people, I'm obsessive compulsive about the customer experience. And so they were
Yeah.
having a real good experience, whether we were telling their story through a custom magazine that we produced,
Mm-hmm.
or video or digital, or their
Mm-hmm.
website, that they started saying, hey, can you help us with strategy? So I had to go hire people with that competency. And so now it's Studio E is pretty much, even though we're a content studio, it's a full-fledged marketing firm. And then we were doing so much video that I've sat on 3 bank boards, and I currently
Yeah.
sit on a publicly held bank board. But in the banking industry, sometimes when it's so expensive to build branches, you don't want to do brick and mortar. It's too long to recruit. So they do what's called a lift. They'll go
Yeah.
into the market where they'll buy the big commercial and then the loan officers in their portfolio and do a lift. I go, I'm gonna, instead of buying this equipment one-offs, I did a lift. So I bought the largest video production company in Baton Rouge. And so we have, that's called Launch Media. So they do all the video storytelling and production company, and they do their own clients, but they also service a lot of Studio E's.
Yeah.
And then this training division at more 8 years ago, I started the Leadership Academy, and I have over 500 alumni, and it's almost like an MBA on steroids, because where do entrepreneurs and small business owners and rising stars at corporations go to elevate their leadership skills? And so these are 5 Fridays. I only take 36 people in the spring, and you graduate 36 people in the
Yeah.
fall. That's it. So 72 a year. And then what happened is, over the years, they would ask, hey, is there anything else, Julio? So I created 2.0. So you
Yeah.
got to go through the first one to qualify for 2.0. And then one day I had a client call me about sales training.
Yeah.
I go, look, we struggle with the same thing. We don't really. And I go,
Yeah.
"Boop, there's another, and again, I'm an
That's
entrepreneur, right? The
awesome.
difference
Yeah.
between an entrepreneur and an inventor, right? An inventor will invent a product and go try and find a market. But an entrepreneur finds a market, there's a
Yeah.
problem, and then, hey, we bring the solution to it, right? So I
Yeah.
started the Selling Academy, and that went well. And so we do that once a year. And then, of course, I have a separate program for our industry because a
Yeah.
lot of people in the media and publishing industry have their own set of issues with it. So it's been fun. And look, again, serving people, right? Making an impact,
Yeah.
making a difference. At this season of my sales career and entrepreneurship, I don't get excited about success as much as I do making an impact, right? And it's about significance.
Yeah. I want to reinforce a couple things here that you have just said. And the first thing is that you didn't have to convince people to, once you're doing the leadership academy, convince people to go, hey, maybe you ought to try a selling academy, or maybe you ought to try this and that. You had focused on delivering such an amazing experience and all the brands that you were doing, whether it's with the business report, whether it's with the custom content that you guys are creating for clients and so forth. You have built a personal brand of what you're known for and what your company is known for, to get people coming to you saying, here's a need. You have no, like, I mean, it's almost unfair what you've developed, right? It's this unfair advantage that you've developed because people are coming to you telling you, hey, if you don't have a business here or you don't have this service, can you build it for us? And that is, if I could reinforce that to any entrepreneur out there, that is the mindset to execute on. Whatever you're doing right now, be so excellent at it that customers will come to you asking, "Can you do this for me?" They will beg to buy whatever you're willing to sell them. Do that. And the second thing, what I love what you've done with the putting together of the companies that you had, there's a central theme that I see. And that theme is what you grew up with earlier in your career, where you said that you were a student of sales, student of your business. And so much of what you have done is you are helping customers be better students in their own growth, whether it's with the business report where they can be informed of what's going on so they can make better decisions, whether it's with the Leadership Academy and all the other education that you're providing. It all seems to be aligned with who you are as a core.
That's pretty accurate. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Now, when you bought the business report, you and your partner, and your, I imagine you inherited a sales team. Is that correct?
Yeah, real small. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we had 4 people at the time.
Yeah.
And obviously, today we have 21.
Yeah. So, you inherited uh, some sales reps. My experience in working with founders, and you would fit this profile in the sense that they don't suck at sales, right? They are fantastic at sales. Their challenge is being able to have patience with the sales reps that they're working with and having the proper expectations and the way that they develop their team to help them fulfill their potential. What were some of the lessons learned in your process? I don't know if you dealt with any frustrations early on as you're building a sales
Oh,
team.
sure, sure, sure,
Walk,
sure.
walk us through that, what that was like and how you work through them.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Let's just talk about, first of all, talent.
Yeah.
Um, you can teach skills, but you can't teach work ethic. You
Yeah.
can't teach drive, So first of all, identifying the right people on your team, right?
Yeah.
That fit your culture, fit your philosophy. That even today in my organization, I have 71 full-time people at the moment, kind of as it relates, but I don't. We use the law of three interviews, three different times, and I'm usually the last one. And I don't interview for skill. I interview for culture fit. And do
Mm.
you understand? These are the expectations. This is what we believe. This is our value system. So I'm
Yeah.
looking for fit because, like I tell them, we may not be a bad company. You may not be a bad person. You just may not be a fit, right? So,
Right.
one, I want to start with that because, again, I want to start with the individual. The other thing is that in that evolution, I'm trying to, particularly if they're young, right,
Yeah.
instill our DNA into them. And so one of my frustrations, I was not a good delegator at first, right?
Mm.
And so I see this a lot. And so one thing I've learned, even in business, but I think it applies to sales, you can control or you can grow, but you can't do both. So you
Yeah.
got to let go,
Yeah.
right? And so I think really investing in training, going back to what you do, you got to have a system. Too
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
entrepreneurs that I see, too loosey goosey, and then one rep leaves and you don't have a system, right? Because they've
Yeah.
had the relationship, right? So you
Yeah.
get crushed, you get hurt. Again, being systematic,
Hmm.
understanding the values, hiring the right people, and that's a system, right? Again, systems come in different shapes and forms, but the point here is you got to have one, and most
Yeah.
don't. And I think, again, your question is, what were some of the frustrations? Those were definitely two, because not everybody is like you, right? And so you're thinking,
Yeah.
hey, man, they should be like me. Well, unfortunately, it took me a while to really, really get that because, again, I already had resiliency built in me because of my background and the adversity that I had to overcome. And just because I overcame it that way and that was instilled in me doesn't mean that Joe Schmo over here or Sally Sue
Yeah.
over here has that, right? So, again, getting older and experience, sucks, but it has its advantages, right? Because you learn, today I have a lot of scars. I have a lot of mileage on my tires. I have a lot of
Yeah.
experience, and I didn't know those things. But I tell you, two ways to learn, right? Mistakes are mentors. And I was
Yeah.
real fortunate because I had some real good mentors that helped me along the way. And so that helped me kind of
Yeah.
accelerate some of the pain points and avoid some of the obstacles that a lot of people have because they're trying to do it on their own,
Yeah.
and or they're not seeking wisdom or counsel or mentor. So I was real fortunate that I had some of those people in my life that again helped me accelerate my growth.
Yeah. I had a mentor who had this saying that I've never been able to shake. He told me this like 25 years ago, but he said, experience is what you get after you needed it.
God, that is so true, right? Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
so
Yeah.
it's one of those things. And what what I'd like to do is when you talked about it took you a while to get to that point of learning to have patience with your reps, that they don't necessarily have to be like you. When you say a while, what are we talking about? 6 months, a year,
Oh,
five
no, we're
years?
talking like 3 to 5 years, man.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it took time. To be candid, I had an executive coach, and he
Yeah.
helped me recognize. I mean, as you well know, one of the greatest traits you can have as a leader, doesn't matter if you're the leader of the company or the sales leader, is awareness.
Yes. Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, right? And man, it just, to me, it seems so trivial now. Like, why didn't I get that? But I just, what? Life is self-discovery. I had to recognize that. And I think the other thing, even like in today's world, right? We're living in the first time in the American history in business. We now have four different generations in the workforce, right? And
Yeah.
so whether it be a baby boomer, millennial, Gen X, Gen Z, they all process information differently. They learn differently. They're motivated differently. And so again, like I tell my kids, but I also talk to our salespeople, you got to have IQ, right? It starts there. You got to have
Yeah.
competency and knowledge base.
Yeah.
but that is like uh, a lot of people have a lot of knowledge, but they hit the lid real quickly because they don't have the
Yeah.
EQ, right? The
Yeah.
emotional quotient, right? The ability to communicate, the ability to connect with people, the ability to listen, the ability to have conflict resolution. And you need both of those. You need IQ, you need EQ, but then you need the third one, which is just as important, and that's your FQ. And your FQ there is your failure quotient, your
Mm,
ability to fall down, to fail, to be
mm,
disappointed, right? To be rejected in sales, right? And get back
mhm.
up and keep going, right?
Yeah.
You're going to
Yeah.
have that in your marriage. You're going to have that in life. You're going to have that in business. So that resiliency, right, is all part of that FQ. And so, again, I think you got to build that type of culture and constantly talk about that because it's just part of it. It's just part of life. It's part of sales. And if
Yep.
we kind of embrace that and know that that's part of it, then hey, we're going to enjoy the journey a lot more and not be surprised or really get down and dejected when we get rejected or when we fall down or fail at something.
I want to get tactical real quick on something that you said recently, and then also on the character traits. The earlier you said, and I want to clarify, clarify that I understand. You said 3 interviews, 3 different times. What does that mean? Like you have 3 candidates, 3 interview, like you
Yeah,
narrow it down?
so one candidate meets with three different people in our organization at three different times, right? And in three different places, pretty much, because again,
Really?
I'm usually the third one, and we usually meet here one on one in my office.
Yeah.
But they meet two other times with two different other people in our organization. So
Yep.
I just call that the law of three, right?
Yeah.
And that way, what we do is we compare notes, and then we bring them through an assessment too, also that they take online, and so we use that data and that feedback to make a decision if this person is a culture fit. Because what
Hmm.
happens many times is that we hire people for what they can do, but we end up firing them for who they are. And
Ooh.
so
Yeah.
I've had some openings before and like, oh my goodness, this person is a killer salesperson. Well, I'll do
Yeah.
reference checks. And oh my God, really? That's the type of character trait they have. They're not going to fit
Yeah.
here. They ain't going to make it. And so we don't hire you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because what I've learned is that, again, you can teach skills, but you can't teach character, right?
E-
Integrity, work ethic, right?
Exactly.
And so that's what I mean about the law of three different times, three different places, different feedback that we assess.
Now, when you're in those interviews and you're assessing whether or not they have that resiliency, the FQ and integrity and some of these other traits where you go, are they going to be a fit for us? How do you uncover that truth?
Uh,
Because most candidates, they are their best PR agents. And
yes, indeed. Hey, it's like one of my mentors told me one time. He goes, "Some people's his best day was the day they interviewed."
what 100%. So,
Yeah.
here they are in front of you. And I'm asking this question to dig out some ways in your processes so that it's not just, well, I'm Julio and I've got this gut feel. I can look them in the eye and go, yeah, they're the right fit. I'm trying to unearth something that can be replicatable from what you do to do that. Because I've met people on your sales team. They are, I mean, they are high performers. They are fantastic. And I'm just curious on how you do that.
Yeah, great question. So I have a phone right here. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I open it up, I have in my notes, I have a talent, it's called a talent pool.
Ooh.
So I am constantly on the lookout. Two of my top salespeople were waitresses
Hmm.
that I discovered they were waiting on me. And I said, come
Yeah.
see me. And now they're
Yeah.
two high performers, right? And so I've been doing this a while now, but I want to give your listeners maybe hopefully some value here. So
Yeah.
obviously I've gotten better as I've gotten older. I'm able to discern, right? Because
Yep.
you don't just listen with your ears, you listen with your eyes. And so I'm
Yeah.
watching body language, I'm watching eye contact.
Yep.
And so a couple of questions. One, I want to know about your background. Tell me about your family. Tell me about growing up. I'm constantly looking, did they play competitive sports? That is
Yeah.
a big key for me. And listen, competitive sports, if you're a female, means dance. If I was a cheerleader, all of
Hmm.
those are very competitive, right? Because that is a plus in my eyes to be in my on my sales team.
Yeah.
Then I ask, tell me the toughest season of your life, the toughest thing you've always had, the toughest adversity you've had to overcome. You'd
Mm.
be amazed. Some people get emotional.
Yeah.
They go back to their childhood. They go back to something that happened. So they come in different sizes and shapes, but that tells me a little bit about them, right? Their ability to overcome adversity. And then I tell them another question. I ask them, hey, tell me, do you have siblings? Tell me your relationship, with your siblings and your parents. And, again,
Yeah.
sometimes, hey, my dad passed away, I'm close to this, I said, who are your mentors and what are two of the biggest lessons that you've learned from your mentors? So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get a feel, right, of what type of person and what type of heart, right? Because like you said, you don't recognize an apple tree by its talk, right? You
Yeah.
recognize it by its fruit. So I'm trying to really uncover what fruit is inside their soul,
Yeah.
and depending on how they respond, right? Again, I'm listening with my eyes, and I'm
Yeah.
listening, looking at their body language. It just tells me I'm able to pick up a couple of the things that I'm able to kind of discern there. And then the last one that I ask them is, tell me the three most important things in your life. What are the three
Oh,
most important things in your life? And so it tells me about where they are with their family,
yeah.
how they view if they have children, about their faith or lack
Yeah.
of faith thereof. It tells me about their priorities in life. And so depending how they answer. So one thing that I've learned, I never hire anybody that when I go, do you have any questions? If they talk to me about compensation first, yeah, I'm done with you.
Mm.
I'm done with you. I just do not. Look, I tell our salespeople, money is the goal, but
Yep.
it's not our purpose. We do
Mm.
not exist as an organization because of money. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, I will tell you that in most MBA classes, you go to Northwestern or Wharton, wherever, and they'll teach you about the time value of money. Hey, bill them quickly, collect quickly, and hold and pay late. Well, we don't do that. I don't do that. They will tell you that's what comes in, right, that determines your success. So we are the antithesis of that. What we say is what determines our success is what goes out of here,
Yeah.
not what comes in. The
Yeah.
quality of our service, the quality of our products, the
Yeah.
quality of our relationships. If that is excellent, then what comes in will take care of itself.
Yeah.
I pay my bills in 30 days. I expect to be, so when we do collections, we
Yeah.
hammer away, and I'm not being a hypocrite. I practice what we preach. So I want my money on
Yep.
time because I pay my bills on time. So
Yep.
again, that's part of philosophy, that's part of culture.
Yeah. And I imagine if you're in that situation and that candidate is their immediate first question is about compensation, what I imagine that you're seeing there is this sales rep is auditioning for how they sell, right?
Yeah,
Are they
it's great.
using, because
I
as
haven't
the
thought about it
employee,
that way, but you know what? Subconsciously, that's exactly right.
well, as the employer, you are the prospect, the customer. And if they engage in high pressure tactics that don't measure, that don't live up to the standards of your culture, you will immediately see that in how they approach their sales. So that is something that you hit on there that I think is so important. I'm curious about, are there examples that come to mind that, when you're in during this culture kind of interview and you're unearthing some things, some of the funny responses that go, yeah, this guy or this girl is just not a fit. And anything come to mind, or has it been so well screened by the
Well,
time it
hey,
gets
hey,
to
hey,
Julio?
this, I'll tell you one. I had a gentleman, and I don't know what he was on, but we're having conversation, and I'm seeing something shiny in his mouth. and I'm obsessed because I'm seeing something shiny, and I can't even hear what he's saying because this
Yeah.
thing's kind of just it's
Yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I finally figured out he had a pierced tongue. And what struck me, and look, I don't, hey, if that's your stick, that's fine, but you didn't
Yeah.
think twice enough. You were not conscientious enough to take that thing out of your mouth before you came to interview.
Yeah.
That that's not good judgment, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give
Yeah.
you another example. I had one that was fantastic. I liked. So I don't go by resumes. I go by social media. So the first thing we do is we go search social media.
Mm,
And one time we had a candidate who, man, this guy, I really wanted to hire him. He interviewed fantastic, smart,
yeah.
articulate,
Yeah.
passionate. And over the weekend, one of our people did a little reconnaissance and they came back and his social media handle was filled with the F word and he had been in some meeting, some sales meeting and talking about his boss there with I, and she showed me she took a snapshot of it
Screenshots. Yeah.
and like, oh my God, what is this guy thinking? I
Yep.
mean, really?
Yeah.
So, again, we will know people by their fruits, right? So checking out their social media, asking these type of questions. They've been all over the place, over the years. They come in different sizes and shapes.
Yeah, they do. Now, you had the rule of three. Is that what you call it? The rule of three?
The rule of three, yep.
Okay, so you had the rule of three, and you're the
Third,
backstop. You're the
yes,
backstop there, making
that's right.
sure okay they fit that culture. Now, what do the first two like? What goes on in the first interview and what goes on in the second? Are they looking more skills based, or are they doing something
Yeah.
similar to what you're
No,
doing?
no, 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 no. They are, it's just a polar opposite. They don't,
Okay.
it's all sales skills,
Okay.
selling, experience, background. Sometimes in the second one, they come back and they do a presentation. They have to do a presentation to
Really?
see if so it just depends on their level of experience, right? Sometimes, they'll get a homework assignment, but those two interviews are all based on sales acumen,
Hmm.
sales characteristics that they would fit in. They get a feel for the pace, how, the what, the why, all that sort of stuff. And it's really only when if they pass that,
That.
then at this point it's just about culture fit. And that's when we have a little document, it's a little card that we call it Our Way. So, the Ritz-Carlton has one, as you well
Yep.
know. I
Yep.
stole mine from Coca-Cola. The franchisee here for many years, he was the top Coca-Cola distributor in
Hmm.
America. He had it was something crazy, like a 98% market share in the region.
Yep.
And one day we inducted him into the Hall of Fame, the Business Hall of Fame here in Baton Rouge, one of
Love
the
it.
events that we produce.
Yeah.
And all his people had that little card. And
Hmm.
so I was called the Coca-Cola Way. And so from there, I go, what a great idea. So we created, it's called Our Way. And it has
Yeah.
our 5 core values. And what I love about it, Sean, is that I only had to do with the vision of the company, right? And the vision for our company, regardless of which one, is very simple. We want to be a
Mm.
company of excellence, innovation, and impact every day.
Yeah.
Regardless of the market that we serve, the clients that we serve, the audience that we serve, we want to be a company of excellence, innovation, and impact every day. And
Hmm.
when you open up the card, we have our 5 core values. Those are what I call our non-negotiables, right? Which is based on integrity and honesty, our
Hmm.
commitment to excellence, giving back to the community, our ability to innovate, and being people focused. So those 5 things are what I call non-negotiable. And again, we're not a perfect company by any stretch of the imagination, but what I
Sure.
tell people is those you can take to the bank. If we make a mistake, we're going to own up to it. It could be our content, could be an article,
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
you know, but those you can take to, we're always going to do what's right. And I've lost money because I said, you know what, life's too short. We're going to take the high road.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it costs us money, but we're going to do what's right. So, and then we have what we call our 10 passions. A lot of companies base their foundation based on principles. We base on our passions.
Wow.
So, for example, the world says don't sweat the details. We sweat the details
Yeah.
around
Yeah. Yeah.
here. We sweat
Yeah.
the details.
Yeah.
Uh, Embracing change is one of them, right? It's like number
Hmm.
8 in that little card. And I tell people, if you don't like change, this is not a good culture.
Yeah.
We're going to stay nimble. We have elasticity in our strategy and our thinking. We got to be able to respond. That's one of our strengths, right? The economy changes, technology is changing, consumer behavior changes. And so
Mhm.
we are going to stay nimble and we're going to change.
Yeah.
So I love change. Now my wife hates change, but I love change, right?
Yeah.
And so we tell people this is a culture where we're constantly changing and evolving. And if it and that's one of the things that I do. I said if you don't like change, this is not a good culture. And again, it's not that we're a bad company or you're a bad person. It's just not a fit. I got to make sure that I can meet your needs and you got to make sure you can meet my needs and my expectations. It works both
Yeah.
ways. And really that's what I try and do because I love having people on our sales teams that are dreamers.
Mhm.
I've hired people and they told me, look, I want to own my own company one day. I said, fantastic. You know what? I think you fit our culture. Come learn. I'll help you. I want to help
Wow.
you learn.
Wow.
And so that's kind of our DNA.
I want to reinforce something that you said there, because what you're talking about by being crystal clear on what your vision is and what your non-negotiables are, those core values that you have, and then everything else that you have laid out as our way. When we talk about the systematic selling framework, when we talk about systematic selling, you think of it like you're building a sales machine. What you're talking about with our way is the blueprint. If you want that machine to work properly and optimally, you got to build it according to the design of that blueprint. And that's what you've created there with the clarity on who you stand for. And that way you're able to attract the right people to come work for you, because the people who are currently working for you are those that align with your values. So you create almost this virtuous cycle, this virtuous loop of people being drawn into what you're about. And once you have that laid out, it becomes much easier to establish those systems around that idea. Does that align with what you're thinking? Is that what you observe in your own company? Because that's
Absolutely.
what I see as an outsider.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a great way to put it. I think it's very accurate.
Now, when so you've got the three different interviews, and one of the things I was curious about, the first two, they're talking about more of their sales skills. Have you ever had it where you hired somebody that didn't have sales experience before, but you saw just the raw ability? Maybe it's the waitresses that you saw, that you were able to see and go, okay, they're they're selling, they're just not in a sales role. Is that how you would distinguish it, because we're
Oh,
all in sales?
all the time. I
Yeah.
prefer to hire people that have no sales experience. To be candid with you, I don't
Yeah.
hire anybody else from other media companies because they
Hmm.
have what I learned is they come in with a lot of bad habits and precepts
100%.
and mindsets, and it's just hard to change them. So I don't even hire them. I'd rather hire somebody with no sales experience and teach them
Yeah.
and train them. And absolutely, as a matter of fact, one of them, I have another one here. This is a quick funny story because we had a hole, and look, the war today is for talent.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
is.
this is the reason the best time to look for salespeople is when you don't need them. If you
Hmm.
wait till the day that you need them, you're going to be behind the eight ball. And so this is
Yep.
why I keep a talent pool, not just for sales, but for other possibilities. I meet people in the community that already get a feel that may fit our culture, extremely
Yep.
talented. I'm impressed with.
Yep.
I put them in my phone, and I have I have a list of people there if a position, right? So you got to be constantly, on the lookout. That's one of my primary jobs, but I put that on my managers also. I had a young lady, we had an opening, but we were having a hard time. This is towards the end of 2020, right? In the midst of
Hmm.
COVID.
Yeah.
And we can't find the position and I can't fill it. I'm frustrated with our manager. So I finally take it on myself. I mean, we got to fill that body. I mean, this is a great product. You can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so my brother recommends this young lady, but she's a manager. She's a beast. She's working on, she's a manager at Banana Republic, but
Wow.
no real outside sales experience,
Yeah.
retail. But
Yeah.
her work ethic, he was impressed with her character and her work ethic because they're understaffed. They won't let them hire any people. She's working crazy hours on the weekends and at
Yeah.
nighttime and the stocking and the inventory. So I bring her in and she's very interested, very excited. but she freaks out with the word commission. It's 100% commission. That's what we are. We're
Yeah.
100% commission.
Really?
So, yeah, 100%.
Wow.
And so, but I tell her, you know, what I've done over the years, because I don't want people worried about what they're going to make the first 6 to 12 months. So what we typically do is we give what's called a guarantee, 6 to 9 months. We have a guarantee. So they're guaranteed a salary because I don't want them focused on, oh my God, am I making enough to pay my bills?
Okay.
So they're guaranteed and
Yeah.
they get to choose when they can come off. Well, frankly, over the last 3 years, most people get off after 4 to 6 months because they go,
Really?
oh my God, I'm making a lot more money if I'm on commission
Yeah.
versus staying on this guarantee that's safe, but it's limited, right?
Yes.
You can't have it both ways. So fast forward, she turns us down. And
Yeah.
45 days later, I check in with the manager. She still doesn't have that position filled. And this young lady impressed me. I said, get her in here. I'm going to close her. So she
Love
comes
it.
in here and we meet and she goes, I just don't, 100%. I said, look, I believe in you so much. I know you've never done this before. And I was a phone concept. And I've never done this before. But I'm going to guarantee you your salary that you're making right now, Banana Republic,
Yeah.
for a year.
Wow.
Guaranteed. Whether you sell zero or if you sell over that. And I think because of your work ethic and how smart you are, that you'll surpass that, but you can get off whenever you want to get off. It's your call.
Mm-hmm.
In the first 18 months, she did over 100,000 in income.
Love
Okay.
it. Yeah.
And again, she had no outside sales experience.
Yeah.
She had no reputation in that, no track record, but I just recognized the talent. I mean, she had it. She just needed somebody to believe in her and to be willing to invest, to train and develop her.
Yeah.
And now she has a brand new career. She loves being engaged in the community. We do a lot of things in our community, a lot of networking, a lot of events, and so she's thriving. But
Yeah.
that's one example.
As we get towards the close of our conversation here, I had a question for you. Some of the fears that business owners have when they're hiring sales reps, especially when they have smaller teams, they're just starting to build out a team. They've been founder led and now they're managing 1, 2, 3 sales reps. One of the big barriers that I've seen some of these founders that are new to working with sales teams is that they're filled with fear of, what if this sales rep takes my customer list? Fear of, hey, this thing doesn't work out. It's a huge kind of impact on our business. What advice do you have for those types of founders that are wrestling with that? It's a natural thing to feel that, to help them overcome it and maybe reframe what they're seeing as
Great.
something that could be different.
So fear and faith have two things in common.
Yeah.
They both start with the letter F,
Yeah.
and they both believe in the future that hasn't happened.
Yeah. Love
So
it.
why would we lead our sales organizations or our companies or even our lives based on fear?
Yeah.
You can base it on faith, on belief, on
Yeah.
optimism.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned, instead of you really become free when you operate based on belief and faith. And look, because of the way I grew up on the streets, no dad. And so I didn't
Mhm.
trust people. I didn't give
Yeah.
people the benefit of the doubt. But as I've gotten older, one of the things I've learned, it's amazing when you believe in people and you give people the benefit of the doubt and what happens. And so
Yeah.
I would reframe, instead of operating off of that fear, is believe the best on that person.
Mm.
I'm not saying you're not going to get burnt. I'm not going to say it's going
Yeah.
to work out perfectly. But if you've done your due diligence, see, one of the mistakes that I did early on, and I can relate to what you're saying. This is this is in my wheelhouse, right? Because
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
One, right? The other thing is that in the early years, right, not only did I not trust and I based it off of fear, but that limited my ability to really grow the sales team, is what I found out, right?
Yeah.
And I think that once you reframe that, right, you go, oh, you know what, I'm going to believe and I'm going to build up, I'm going to invest. See, the best way to build loyalty is to train them and teach them how they can grow professionally and financially. And what
Yeah.
I've discovered, again, to this day, none of my salespeople can outsell me. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still learning. I'm still learning,
Yeah. Yeah.
how can I sharpen, right, the axe, right,
Yeah.
and get better
Yeah.
in my skills, right? But I think that as the entrepreneur, as a sales leader, you set the tone, right?
Hmm.
And so you got to trust the process. If you've
Yeah.
done a good job of vetting this person out, this is what I was going to say. Early in my career, I hired fast and I fired slow. Today is just the
The
opposite. We
opposite.
take our time,
Yeah.
we got to vet it out. We got to get references. We take our time. And if it's not working out, we pull the trigger quickly. I
Mm.
mean, it's just polar opposite. 25, 30 years ago, I was there. I didn't
Yeah.
trust. And then I hired, hey, they were breathing. We need to fill a position. Hey, they're breathing. Put him in there, Sean. Let's give it a
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when we got disappointed.
Uh-huh.
That's when we got burnt. But again, I think if you're methodical, if you have a system, if you have a philosophy, if you take
Yeah.
your time and use some of these tactics and processes that I'm talking about, your ratio, your chances of hiring the right person go up.
Real quick, it, so when you take your time on the front end, what is that typical range? Like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 90 days? What's the typical process?
Yeah, probably 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Two
Okay.
to 4 weeks. No, it's almost. I just got back from a CEO summit in Harvard,
Yeah.
and one of the things that we just, there was 80 of us from around the world, from Dubai, Australia,
Wow.
Chile, Mexico, and one of the things in the Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, they said, fail fast and test fast.
Hmm.
And in today's world, I don't think 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, I think it's a long time. First of all, there's
Yeah.
other people, particularly if you got a real good candidate, they're looking at other
Yeah.
opportunities and
You're
other people trying to
competing.
pick them off, right? So I
Yeah.
think this is why even it's more imperative to have a system, right?
Yeah.
A system that you can move them through quickly, right? And so I think the key here is not to be in a hurry,
Hmm.
but to have a system where you can go fast. You see the difference? So you don't want to be
Yes.
in a hurry, rushing to hire, but you want to have a system where you do the 360, you cover all your bases so you can move fast. And
Awesome.
if you don't have a system, then you end up hurrying and you're not really going fast. You're rushing the process and you don't do your due diligence.
Yeah.
That
And
makes sense.
you're actually prolonging things because if you have to let that person go in the next 3 to 6 months, you have lost a
It is
ton of
painful. It
opportunity
is so
cost.
painful, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The cost of turnover. I mean, I hate it. It's painful.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
It's just real. Now, anything that we haven't talked about today that I know we've covered a lot of ground, but anything we haven't talked about today that you think would be important for our audience of founders, owners, and sales leaders that they should know about?
Well, I think, I'll leave you with this last thought. Yeah, as our organization grew, I had to enlarge not just my selling, but also
Mhm.
my leadership skills, right?
Yep.
And I think many times as entrepreneurs, we get frustrated because we see certain problems, and my vision of being the leader of the organization now as a CEO, has changed over the years, right? I used
Yeah.
to go to an MBA class and they used to, as a guest speaker, and they would ask, so
Yeah.
what do you do as the leader of your company? And I would go, well, vision,
Uh-huh.
mission, and all that.
Yeah.
And then I caught myself over the years, the next 5 years, I'd go back to a different class and so
Yeah.
what do you do as the leader of your business? And I would go, oh, well, I allocate resources, right? Capital and human and this and that.
Yeah.
And finally, Sean, 4 years ago, one of my mentors who recently passed away helped me.
Mm.
He helped me really understand what I do every day.
Wow.
As the leader of my company, I do four things every day.
Mm.
I lead with purpose. I solve problems.
Mm.
I serve people. And I bring the energy. I bring the energy to the organization. That is my job every day. So I don't no longer get frustrated. Oh, there's a problem. No, that's what I do daily. I solve problems. And guess what? I'm here to serve my employees.
Yeah.
I'm here to serve my customers. I'm
Yeah.
here to serve my community. Right. And this is the reason when I go places, hey, I like to be served well because I like to serve well myself, you
Yeah.
know? And so that's what I do every day. And so I think that clarity has helped me a lot lead my people.
Yeah, and that's a perfect way to end this episode because you bring the energy to this podcast, my man. Thank you
I
so much
appreciate
for
it.
joining us, Julio.
Hey, thank you, Sean. It's been a pleasure, my man. Thank you for all you're doing for people and what you've done for me.
Absolutely.